So far away, Nisha, we're striking while the iron is freezing fucking cold on this one. Why are we talking about Breaking Bad?
Because I've recently got into watching it, so I thought it'd be fun to talk about.
Fair enough. We'll get into it late, but we got to it eventually. Bryan Cranston is a fantastic actor, so much so he can make you root and feel sorry for Walter White, a megalomaniac drug kingpin who yells at his wife with a shitty tasting hat. A noted method actor, Bryan Cranston was so dedicated to portraying Walter White that he actually learned how to make and manufacture methamphetamine. God, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Meth. Best.
Say meth.
Meth. Methamphetamine, it's such a long-winded word that you rarely get to say in normal conversation, so I hope I've got that right. Is there like a long-ass word that you're always scared to pronounce? Or is there like one that you like saying? Is there like a long-ass word that you enjoy saying?
I don't know, because I'm one of those people who, when I say long words, I get them the wrong way round. Like, I say them wrong, and I'm like, I just feel like an idiot now.
Nisha, you're talking to a champion of that. I can't make a video without someone telling me I'm pronouncing a word wrong because of my accent or just lack of education in certain subjects.
I think the worst is saying someone's name. We don't really know how to say it.
Yeah, I always feel bad about that.
I think one I had comments on a while back was Shia LaBeouf, because I say Shia.
Okay.
And I don't know how to say it. I don't know, is it Shia? And then his second name's LaBeouf. I don't know how to say it.
How does I call him Shia LaBeouf? It makes me sound so fun. Anyway, why?
Okay, Karl, so how do you make meth?
Well, I don't fucking know, and that's the story I'm going to stick to. Well, not many people on Earth know how to make methamphetamine, and fewer people still know how to make it exceptionally well, which was a problem for Vince Gilligan, the showrunner for Breaking Bad, because he's kind of a stickler for details when it comes to things like that, and he wanted everything seen on the show in regards to the production of methamphetamine to be as realistic as possible. But as you might imagine, picking the brains of people who know how to produce meth is exceptionally difficult, what with it being illegal and all. And as a result, he found it exceptionally difficult to get anybody to talk to him about the production of methamphetamine, to inform him of how to, dress sets and things like that.
Well, that must have been a big issue, because the point of Walter White's character is that he makes the best meth.
Yeah, they have, the running thing throughout all the seasons of Breaking Bad, that his meth is consistently the best produced meth on the entire planet. To the point where in the final few seasons, he's getting up to 99% purity.
Because there's that guy, I think in the 3rd or 4th season, Gale, who comes in to help him, and he can only make it to 96%.
Yeah, he's a master of chemistry. He says, even I can only make it to 96%, which sounds good, but that extra 2% is what makes this thing blow people's fucking minds. You need Walter White to do this. And, that's what feeds into his egomania. It's I make the best meth in the world. Until he's forced to admit to Jesse, you're just as good as I am. I'm a fucking loser.
God, it just makes it better as well when it goes blue. I think it looks so cool.
Yeah, oddly enough, I think after the show aired, blue meth started turning up around places in America, because people who produce methamphetamine didn't know you could do the technique seen in the show, because it's so fucking realistic, which we'll get to in a moment. Adam
got this kit, this sweet kit, where you could make this tray of clear blue sweets, which looked like meth.
Well, that's how they made it on the show. The actual blue meth seen on the show, I think, was just sugar candy or something like that. And Aaron Paul and Bryan Cranston we ate so fucking much of it. We take it home and give it to our family.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what is it they actually use on the show? Because it can't be real.
Yeah. Before we continue, Nisha, what's your favourite Breaking Bad moment if you're currently, midway through watching it?
Oh, God. I think one of my favourite episodes has to be when that fly gets in.
Oh, that's a polarising episode, would you believe it? So many people fucking hate that episode. And I'm like you, and I like that, because I like bottle episodes of TV shows, and people don't know, a bottle episode is a episode of a TV show where only a couple of characters stay in one static location for the majority of it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's great because it showcases how good the acting talent is on that show, but I know a lot of fans don't like it because it brings the pace of that season to a crawl. Which I guess would have been infuriating back when the show first aired and you had to wait an entire week to see the next one. But when you're binging it, it's a great tonal shift. And that is a great episode, but I think my favourite moment from the show, and it's possibly one of my favourite moments of acting ever. I can tell it's one of the greatest moments of acting in a TV show, if not ever. And it is when Walter and Jesse are stuck in the desert. And they're sweating their balls off and they don't know how to escape. And Walter sits down and he works something out and goes, I know what we can build to escape. And Jesse looks at him and goes, a robot? And I contend that's one of the greatest line deliveries of all time, because for that moment, I fully believe that Aaron Paul's character believes that Walter White can build a robot. Because he says it with such wonder in his voice. He's like, a robot?
What are we building? You said it yourself. A robot?
And there's the classic moment where Walter throws a pizza on the roof.
Yeah, which the owner of that house hates because people keep going to his house and throwing pizzas on the roof.
Oh no. Oh no.
And the moment I want to mention, because a lot of people say it's their favourite moment, and it is the line read of, I am the one who knocks. And I fucking hate that line, because that's the one that appears on all the t-shirts, and you see weird, overweight dudes with it on shirts. It's like, I am the one who knocks. It's like, everyone always forgets that that's a line growled by Walter White at his screaming, terrified wife. He's basically an abusive husband in that moment. And that moment is immediately followed by him being kidnapped by some cartel goons and screaming like a bitch. It's not supposed to be a badass line. It is a tiny, petty man screaming at his wife, insisting that he's a big deal when he knows he's not.
It's like how you mentioned earlier, you can feel sorry for him, even though he's a bit of a dickhead. It's just something about him, you just feel sad for him.
Bryan Cranston is a fantastic actor, and Vince Gilligan has said that the whole point is that you're not supposed to like Walter White, but Bryan Cranston is so charismatic and he has so much presence, people ended up liking the character and ended up putting shit like I am the one who knocks on t-shirts, thinking it's a badass line, when it's supposed to be the character being verbally abusive to his fucking wife. It's like, why would you lionize that man? Anyway, making meth.
Okay, so bringing it back to the article, what happened?
Yes. Well, according to Vince Gilligan, they had a hard time convincing anyone who knew how to make meth to speak to them, even with the promise of anonymity. So, that shit's illegal. And they were worried, we're not going to be able to convincingly show how meth is made in the show, even though that's not really something they had to do, because 99.9% of people don't fucking know how meth is made. But as mentioned, Vince Gilligan is a stickler for detail, so eventually he was able to contact the Drug Enforcement Agency, the DEA. You know, the guys who were in the show trying to track Heisenberg down? They brought them in and they showed everyone on set how meth is made in great detail and showed them photos of actual meth labs to inform set dressing and things like that. But perhaps nobody got more instruction in the production of methamphetamines than Bryan Cranston, who was given an intensive several-day-long course with DEA agents and chemists from the agency in all things meth. And they told him basically everything there is to know about the production of methamphetamine so that he could convincingly portray an expert on the subject. And according to industry rumour, they even went through the process with Bryan Cranston once or twice in a controlled setting.
Has Bryan Cranston ever confirmed or denied that he knows how to make meth?
No, he's remained frustratingly tight-lipped on the topic of whether or not he's actually made meth before and how much knowledge he has on the subject. But as I said, industry rumour is that he not only made a little bit of meth as part of his training, but has enough knowledge and know-how to make it. And something supported by the fact of what happened when Breaking Bad started to air.
So what happened when it started to air?
Well, Vince Gilligan and the team behind Breaking Bad started getting a lot of letters from meth addicts and drug dealers, commending them on the accuracy of the sets and jargon used.
God.
They were getting letters like, oh yeah, I produce meth. I'm not going to give you my name, but I produce meth. I'm just astounded at how accurate your sets are. Those are really good. Congratulations. It's that's a weird thing to be congratulated on, but I guess it's a compliment because it shows that, they were accurate in their portrayal. But it gets just a little bit better because in addition to criminals and those who took meth commending the show for its accuracy, actual DEA agents would come in to tour the sets in a professional and personal capacity and would marvel at their accuracy, openly stating that they looked exactly like actual drug dens they busted.
Wow.
And a pertinent detail in that sentence I want to just narrow in on for a second is that DEA agents would tour the set in a professional capacity because DEA agents will be brought in to be shown what the sets look like, to give them an idea of what an actual meth lab looked like if they'd not seen one before. Because looking at photos is one thing, but you can, with the sets, step into one and see it basically as it would look in real life and get a feel for the space and how it works and, like, you know, where it'd be located.
That's pretty cool.
That's how accurate they were. And people wondering, well, didn't the DEA help them set it up? Yeah, experienced DEA agents did, but rookie ones would be brought in to tour the sets and have a look around. It's like, this is what a meth lab looks like. Keep an eye out for it. This is the space that it contains. Like, you know, these are the things that you want to keep an eye out for. These are the items that would normally be found in a lab that produces methamphetamine. Keep an eye out for these objects, which is something that, like, happens in the show. Like, do you know, like, early in the first season?
Yeah.
When you get Hank talking to Walter when he has no idea that he's the one making it. Like, yeah, you got some shit stolen from here that can be used to make meth. I'm sure you wouldn't know that. And something I feel compelled to end on is, like, you know, a paraphrase quote from Vince Gilligan, because in interviews, when he's talked about getting these letters from people involved in the meth industry, either producing it or, you know, consuming the drugs, he said, well, I took them as a compliment. It meant that, you know, we did our job properly. We dressed the sets as accurately as possible. I do hope that the people who wrote those letters have since left the industry or stopped taking the drug, because something I learned while making the show is that it is a horrible, horrible thing, and it can just, you know, ruin lives. So while I took those letters as a compliment, I hope they're from people who've got to a better place. And it's like, oh, because fucking hell, does meth fuck you up? So Far Away Nisha, this episode was in a roundabout way about just really realistic portrayals of jobs and things like that in TV shows and movies. So I think we can talk about that a little bit. So your field, like your education, your background is in film and visual effects, yes?
Yeah, that's true.
People might not be able to tell, given, like, you know, the quality of these videos, but you know how to do that. So have you ever seen an accurate portrayal of that field in media?
Yeah, there's probably some moments that I've seen, like, you know, when people are looking at CCTV footage and stuff, and they zoom in, and it's just clear, and it's like, oh no, because the more you zoom in, the more pixelated it is. Like, yeah, it reduces the quality.
Or like people using Photoshop to manipulate an image in like 4 seconds. And they just click a button. Well, this whole thing about Breaking Bad being so realistic in regards to its portrayal of the meth industry, being so realistic that people involved in the actual manufacturing of drugs were like, wow, this is really good. Reminds me a little bit of the show The Sopranos, which, for the 8 people who don't know, is a show about organised crime. Was so realistic that the FBI would know a couple years later that wiretaps they had on members of organised crime families would talk about the show and wonder out loud how it was so realistic. Like, they'd go there like, wow, Sopranos, like, it feels like somebody has tapped us and he's, like, you know, using our lives as inspiration. Just like the idea that the FBI are listening in on members of organised crime families talking about how realistic the Sopranos are. Going, I wonder if anyone is actually listening to us, like, right now and using that as inspiration for the show, not realising that they were being listened to by the FBI at the time. And then you have a similar thing with the show The Wire, where there's an actor who played a character called Bubbles, who is a drug addict. And according to that actor, he was once stood off set in full costume, and someone came up to him and offered him drugs, telling him he looked like he needed a bump. It's like, look, mate, you look really rough. You look like you need some drugs. And he's like, wow, I must be a fucking great actor. I must be so good at portraying a drug addict because I look like I need drugs right now. And he calls that his street Oscar.
Oh, God, that's crazy.
Right, because someone came up to him and offered him drugs. It's like, wow, I must be really fucking good at this. If people legitimately think I need drugs. And he took it as a compliment.
It just makes me think of the actors and actresses who have to go through like body changes for certain roles, like put on weight or lose weight. It's like, it must be so difficult. Off the top of my head, I think Jared Leto did it for quite a few films. Like
Dallas Buyers Club and stuff like that, yeah. Well, a darker example of that is the film Schindler's List with, I think it's Ralph Fiennes, plays an actual SS commander, I forget the name of, but he apparently looked so realistic and so true to life in costume that an actual survivor of the Holocaust had flashbacks when they met him.
Oh my God.
Like, he walked out in costume and they had flashbacks to the war because he looked so good. It's like Yeah, he was probably like, really, really upset that he caused that much distress, but what a fucking compliment as an actor that you look so much like the person you're playing. People are getting fucking flashbacks to it.